want to change the values that I have put in my family, I click and select one panel by tabbing through. And then I can't really grab it because it's still pinned. So there's all these elements are pinned because they're part of another system. So I need to unpin that view. And while we're at it, let's just go ahead and select all of them and type UP for unpin. So now everything's unpinned and I can work on it however way I want to work with it. And then if I want to edit the values of this specific family, all I need to do is select one panel, go into edit type, and all the parameters that I created are now visible in the project. So I never have to open that family again once I have it. So if you do this once and you do it correctly, this is like a super curtain panel family, right? The only thing missing is your, I mean, we can go even farther and toggle left and right visibility for your opening. So we'll have two lines that indicate it opens. So there's all kinds of things we can do with it. All right, so just to prove that it works, I'll change my mullion depth to be 6 inches. My height of my inner mullion to be 2 feet. My glass thickness to be 1 inch. My glass inset to be 1 inch. Slab edge bottom width would be 1 foot, but it's not visible, so that's okay. Slab edge top width, we'll make it 2 feet. Slab edge thickness we can leave at 4 inches. And then offset from face we'll do 2 feet. And if I click apply, it'll edit and update that whole entire curtain wall for me. Okay. Now, the question was, okay, so before we do the double skin facade, right, some other things I can do with this. So really, the way the curtain panel works at this level, I really don't, I show you it this way because, you know, it is a curtain wall. But the power of this tool extends far beyond this explicit modeling, right? So if I go and create a separate wall, let me just go ahead and, yeah, we can just continue with the video. I'll split it later. So if I make a new curtain wall just off to the side here, I'm going to just draw it in. Right, I have two separate individual elements. So let's say right now I can make this as an empty panel, and if we look at every building out there, really pretty much 99% of all buildings are a series of patterns on their faces and elevation. So really this is how you drive that pattern, right? So if I wanted to say that I'm going to create a new mullion type called fractal, right, and I'm going to give it a layout of a fixed number and click OK. And I'm going to make it so it's a little smaller so I don't crash this thing. Right, and I'm going to tab through. Right, each one of those is a panel glazed. So if I wanted to, this is now curtain wall fractal. Let's say I wanted to take this same curtain wall. I can load that into, if I unpin that panel, I can load that into that same one I just created. I can load it into itself, right? And then I can do it again. And I can go as far as I want until the thing breaks. Okay, so I can begin thinking of, you know, taking my buildings and separating them down to the least common denominator, right? Knowing that I can do that, I can also then load in different wall panels. So really, I'm not modeling walls anymore explicitly. I'm modeling them through a curtain wall, right? Because most of you know Revit. You know, you go into the office, you apply for a job, and you say, yeah, I know Revit. It's like, okay, but doing this, you will definitely know Revit, right? So let's say I wanted to make this entirety of my project all concrete, right? What I would do is I would go into each curtain panel segment, delete that off, and then on each one of these, I would make a section of my panel, or my curtain wall pattern, I'll call it. So now this whole entire set, I'm going to make concrete, right? Even though it's a curtain wall, I'm using it in a different manner. Okay? So then my whole entire skin in this method can be driven based on that set. So, and really it's pretty sophisticated, because really most of you would say, okay, if I had to build this explicitly, you would probably draw the wall, and then you would draw the curtain wall, and then you would edit the profile of the curtain wall, if you got that far. And then both would be independent of each other. When we think of skin on a building, right, skin is like skin on your wrists, right, in your hands and your body, right? When I pull the skin, everything moves with it, all the cells and everything else, right? So building skins work the same way. And then by doing it this way, you're able to really drive the whole entire thing as one, right? Because then I'm only hosting one wall to the element versus doing everything twice and 3 times. Okay? Some other things I can do with this, right? So I'll take this same one and I'm going to draw another one out. And I'm going to call this one random. I'm going to click OK. And then it's going to add, by default, I'm going to give it an initial grid pattern by a number. I'm going to click Apply and click OK. And then this one, I want to drive the depth of each panel based on a certain criteria so that it's a random function, right? And I can do it a multitude of ways. Revit doesn't handle random variables very well. So how I can trick it is I'm going to do it based on its overall thickness or its overall height. So I'm just going to do a brand new family, and I'm going to rock through it really quickly here. We'll go ahead and click New Family. And I'm going to do the same curtain wall family panel. So it's a brand new one. And then in this one, I'm going to make just a block and give it a thickness. So I'm just going to host it directly to the exterior boundaries. And then if I go to my reference level, I'm going to do RP, reference plane, and I'm going to host that to that element. And then I want to do a dimension constraint. I'm going to add a parameter, and I'm going to call it depth. And then I want my depth to be driven by the width of my panel, right? So here's where instance properties begin to take place. Is there's a thing called a reporting parameter, right? Because right now, if I were to edit the width of my geometry in my panel, I would have no way of reading that data because I'm not explicitly telling it to do that. It's being driven by something else. So what I want to do is I want to add in a reporting parameter. So it's basically going to read the distance of the width of my panel. Right, so I'll go into my exterior view and I'm going to do DI, and this is the only time that you will strike a dimension string to the existing reference planes that they give you in the template family. And if I select that, I'm going to go ahead and add a parameter, and then you'll see me only do this in nested families and reporting parameters because that's the only way I can get a reporting parameter. Right, so when I click on instance, it's going to make reporting parameter available to me. And I'm going to click on reporting parameter, and I'm going to call it width of panel. Actually, I'm just going to keep it simple and call it width. And then in my values, you should see this width come up, and it should be grayed out. Now, why it's grayed out is because it's feeding data back into this, right? It's reading that data. It's not where you can change that data, okay? So what I'll do is at this point, I'll say that depth, I'll keep it something simple, 2 feet. Depth is equal to width divided by some variable. So I'd want to have that variable able to change as well. So we call it like a threshold. So I'll call it threshold. And then threshold, I'm going to remove that. I want to make sure that threshold is a type of, should be an integer. Yeah, it should be integer. We'll do it as number. Yeah, number works. Click OK. And then depth is equal to width divided by threshold. Make sure that you put a value in here. So when you do this, it's going to say that instance parameters cannot be used in type parameter formulas. So basically, that's telling you that, hey, you've created a type value which is going to change for every single one of those panels, right? So I want to have each panel individually change on its own. So therefore, I need to make depth be an instance parameter, as well as threshold an instance parameter. Actually, I can leave that as a type. And if I click apply and I click OK, it should remove my error. So now when I change the value of threshold, my thickness should change as well. So I'm going to save that out as random generator tutorial random depth generator. Okay. I'm going to load that into my project. And then on this panel family, I'm going to make sure that it gets loaded with that particular panel. And then if I want to begin changing the random depth, I can move, if I select all my curtain grids through the filter and unpin those. If I move those, my width is going to begin changing. Okay, makes sense? Now I could go even farther with it and get crazy, and I could say that on the back side of this, I start deleting out elements. If I want to change that threshold value, I need to actually go to the family itself through the browser or tab through, edit that type, unpin it, and then edit that type. Change my threshold to be 4, and it will reduce the amount of variation. Okay? Now, if I wanted to make, so the question is a double skin facade. The easiest way to do a double skin facade, right, is to take this curtain wall, copy it over. If I want it to be smart, so in the event that you have like, there's a building on the list in Germany, I forget the name of it, but it's all double skin facade. You can build that into the panel family itself. Basically, it's just going into the family. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to save this off as a double skin. Right, and I'm going to keep it simple for this. Right, to get anything loaded in the back of something, I would need to say that I got to build, instead of building it in elevation, I'm now building it in floor plan for this, at least the back panel. So I would do RP for reference plane. And I would say that I'm going to create my extrusion. And I'm just going to do a panel for now. You would detail it out similar to what we did with the original one. And I put a distance on that. Add parameter, depth of skin. And I'm just going to lock this thickness for now. I don't want to add another parameter and muck it up. And then I just need to make sure that in 3D, that back panel then gets aligned to the height of that one. Then I load it into my project. And if I go to my detail model, if I want to switch out individuals, so let's say if I go back to my working 3D view, let's say that along the yellow part, right, the yellow program, that this part's double skin. So I would say that in this instance, all of these panels here are the double skin one. Okay. Cool? It's a lot easier than we thought. Okay. So what time? It's 8:30. Perfect. Okay, so that that would be bad. Okay, so the last part of this is I have all this set up now, right? I should have my detail model view. I should have my program mask view, right? I want to load this in now to my master file, right? So we would assume that I did all the edges of this. All I need to do to update my master file is click Save, because I've already arrayed all the levels. And if I go back to my master file now, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to Manage Links, and I'm going to reload that, and I'm going to click OK, and then I should see all of my stuff populated in one shot, right? And then there's a whole other set of things I would need to do for the views. So I would need to link in the views, right? So if I go to my project browser, this particular view, right, because we set up those filters inside the linked file, I need to go in and say that, well, one, I'll duplicate it, and I'm going to call this one program mask. And then I'm going to duplicate the other one off. And I'm going to call it detail model. Click OK. And then in my detail model view, I'm going to go to VV for visibility graphics. And then I should see a new tab appear that handles Revit links. And then I need to pull that down. Actually, I could probably just leave it as is. And I want to edit my display settings. So I'm going to say that I'm showing this view based on the linked view of detail model. And I'm going to click apply and click OK. Right? And then in program mass, I'll do the same thing and say that this is handled by the linked view and it's handled by program mass. And I'm going to click OK and apply. Detail, program. Cool? That's why the video is here.